hello everyone. It's been a while, hasn't it? And you know what? It's my fault. I can only blame myself for that. Where to begin? Well, Chelsea, well deserved as far as winning the Club World Cup. To the team that goes and fights for what they believe in, they end up getting the spoils usually. Now, that can also be said inversely, as Palmeiras fought for what they believed in and how they believed. For many people that aren't familiar with what I'm saying, people think it's just gibberish. That's how Palmeiras plays. What you saw for 120 minutes, that's Palmeiras in their entire essence. Regardless of what Abel Ferreira has said in the past about him trying to play more offensive football, it doesn't happen that way. That's not the way he is. He prioritizes defense. He's one of those very conservative, and I hate to be stereotypical to a certain extent, but have you seen the more quote unquote defensive minded Portuguese coaches? Well, that's him in an essence. He sold to Palmeiras the fact that he was an offensive minded coach, that he was going to bring back the Palmeiras DNA, which to a certain extent he has, but only when it comes to their winning DNA. It's been good enough to be able to get results. It's been good enough to get championships, or at least keep them in the fight for them. So in that sense it has, but it is not how Palmeiras traditionally plays. Palmeiras under Abel Ferreira is exactly that. So what you see is what you get. And once they get on top of you, and once they take the lead, they're a very difficult team to beat. They're a very difficult team to break down. Even when they weren't winning today, they were a very difficult team to break down. And who knows if that penalty isn't called in the 117th minute? Who knows how things would have gone? That's supposition. Okay, let's not go that avenue, because we can go down a lot of rabbit holes. They did what they could do with what they had. Simple and to the point. There were some players that played brilliantly. Danilo, Rony had some interesting moments. Gustavo Scarpa was tireless, but that's him in a nutshell. There's some good players on this team that could be good contributors or positive contributors on European sides. Gustavo Gomez, he's just a monster. To me, he is one of the top 2, 3, maybe even the best central defender in South American football in actuality. You saw it. He just has this intangible leadership, and for him to be able to take it over and become that guy, that reference inside of the area, or in that back line, and it makes you really understand why many teams, when he was doing well before he made the move to AC Milan a few years back, what they were looking at. It didn't pan out in Europe. He came back and just became a monster. I mean, Boca must be kicking themselves for not being able to get him a few years back. Like I said, Danilo, to me, for Palmeiras, was the man of the match. For Luan, it's just, you can't make those mistakes. And that's what happened. Now, let me go to the Chelsea side, because Chelsea, honestly, they did deserve more. But then people talk about styles, but that's Palmeiras. Palmeiras gives you 70-75% possession. They don't mind. And they're very happy to go on breaks and take advantage. Now, they didn't. They had opportunities. They could have won this game. Yeah. Deservedly or not, that's another story. Okay? But they had chances. They just couldn't finish. Chelsea were more clinical. Chelsea were a better team. Chelsea are the better team. There's no doubt about it. Are they the best team in Europe? That's debatable. But if you come and tell me that they are, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Are they best? They're the best team in Europe in actuality? Same thing. I could probably agree with you, but I could probably also say that there's maybe 2 or 3 teams that are better than them right now, and that's fine, and that's all fine and dandy. The same thing can be said about Palmeiras, mind you. Don't think that it's just the European South America. No, the same thing can be said about Palmeiras. Palmeiras, many are saying Palmeiras is probably, or last year people were saying that Palmeiras was the worst Copa Libertadores winning side ever. And that says a great deal. that in a nutshell says a great deal. As it's one of those things that these types of tournaments end up having this type of debate, and we can talk an hour. Was Palmeiras worthy of winning the Copa Libertadores? Were they worthy of winning today? Today maybe, but maybe their style wasn't indicative of it. And same thing could be said about Chelsea. Maybe they made enough arguments on the pitch to be able to win it. They won it. At the end of the day, they won it, and that's the most important thing that matters. So I don't want to go off and start creating these debates when it's not necessary. But at the same time, we end up seeing exactly how this team, Chelsea, plays. They are a team that is able to get wins with big game players at this stage of the game, which makes them that much more dangerous and possibility of repeating. They understand, they've been there, they've been able to overcome, and they know how to overcome these more adverse situations. Pardon my dog, who's just making his bed at this time. But again, all of these things come into play, because for the next few days, maybe there will be the argument of who is the best team in the world. And people say Manchester City, some people might say Liverpool, some people might say Chelsea, some might even say, I don't know, if you want to look, maybe Bayern would be one, maybe Real Madrid, maybe, and you have to really stretch it out, maybe PSG. But again, you'd be reaching a bit. But for the most part, at this stage, on February 12th, when I'm recording this, maybe those are the arguments that are said. Maybe in March 12th, we're saying something completely different. Oh, Chelsea's no good. Or maybe Chelsea, by hands down, is the best team in the world. But that again, switches and changes a little bit. But based on what they've been able to do, based on the arguments they've been able to do, or put on the table, they are the best team right now over the last year. Champions League. They've been able to win 3 titles under Thomas Tuchel in less than a year. That says a great deal about what he's been able to do. And I think that's more important to stand out. Because if in 11 months he's been able to do this, imagine if you give him a little bit more time and you're able to get some of your players that aren't in their best form in that form once again, or in a similar type of form, or somewhat at the same level that they were when they were able to win the Champions League. Imagine how that team will look. Now, when they face, or if they face City again, or if they face Liverpool, or whoever they end up facing, that'll be the test. That'll be yet another measure as to where they're at. Because it's always a very changing argument, and I would like to be able to see that. Palmeiras will have that test too. I mean, keep in mind that Palmeiras are just starting again. Mind you, people will say, well, because Palmeiras have played somewhere along the lines of 180 matches. Okay, let's use the date of July 2020. Okay, July 2020 to now, Palmeiras have nearly played 200 matches. 200. Last year they played around 96 matches, and then before that they played something along the lines of about 90 plus, so nearly 200 matches. Okay, let's say 180 matches. That's nowhere close to what Chelsea have played. So let's keep that in mind when we're looking at these types of things. You do have a team that has had barely any rest, barely any type of and the rest that they've been able to get is via rotations and bringing in young players who have been playing in the Estaduales, but which just started a couple of weeks ago, and they've only had 1 month to overall recover from their previous season, from 2021. So it has a lot of that to do. Now, is there a difference? Yeah, of course there's a difference. There's a big difference between European and South American side, and it gets much closer. Now, let's keep in mind 2 things. Chelsea are one of the teams in Europe that have spent the most in the past few years. Palmeiras are one of the teams that have spent the most in South America. So you start seeing where the financial gains and also where football is heading into in these 2 respective regions as to who are the teams that are dominating. Many in Argentina, because River have a chance. No, they don't. River have a very good team, but they still have to contend with a Flamengo who's restocking with European players, with a Atletico Mineiro, who's restocking with European players and European coaches, and they have the money to bring them in. Okay, River, because they've been able to sell properly and buy properly. We'll have to see how that plays out. But the Argentine teams, the Uruguayan teams, the Chilean teams, so on and so forth, whatever, they're playing in another league right now compared to the top teams in Brazil. The Flamengos, the Atletico Mineiros, the Palmeiras. I'll name those three, and of course there's a couple others that might come into play going into the future, like Internacional, so on and so forth. So that's it. That's a different league in of itself, a super league, if you will, kind of like in England, mind you, kind of like the Premier League. Because if we really look at the Premier League has a super league within it, which is like the top 6 teams, and the top 6 teams that are perennially in those top 6 or top 10 and end up winning the title and end up going and playing and fighting and winning Champions League. So it's kind of the same dynamic that's going on there. So it's another reality that we have to face. Now, all of that said, these two teams have shown that maybe you don't have to be the best. You don't have to have the best style. Maybe you don't have to have the absolute best players around. But if you have a good collective group, Chelsea and Palmeiras showed it, you can end up winning a title. And that's exactly what they did. But they have just enough, the right combination of financial, of resources, players, coaching, and collective to be able to make that happen. And I think that's where football's heading. Now we're starting to get out of that superstar, the need to have the superstar to put you over the hump. If you have a strong collective, you can beat the superstar team. And that's happening more and more at the club level. And I think that's where football's heading from here on out.